It seems that we have a visitor, Holmes.
Indeed. Come in. Hello, Sir Henry Baskerville. Did you have a good trip?
But how do you know who I am? I had not announced my visit.
By looking at your dress, it is totally unsuited to our wet English weather. This allowed me to deduce that you came here in a hurry and carrying the bare minimum in your luggage. Then there is a blue ink stain on your thumb, the same blue ink used by the passenger service at Waterloo Station to print their tickets. Your ticket has stained your thumb because of the rain. Also, my attention was attracted to your cufflinks with the initials HB, but still I had not yet made the connection with the famous Baskerville family. It is by remembering a Times article that I deduced your identity. It was telling of the odd death of Charles Baskerville and the likely return of his nephew and only heir, Henry.
Brilliant. Your reputation is well-deserved, Mr. Holmes. But let me explain the purpose of my visit.
You do not believe in legends, and you would like to clear the circumstances of your uncle's death. You need a factual, logical, and rational explanation of what some call the curse of the Baskervilles. And who else, in all modesty, but Sherlock Holmes and his faithful friend Dr. Watson would be able to solve such a mystery? Watson, my friend, pack your bags. We're leaving for Baskerville Hall. Tell us about the curse of the Baskervilles, Henry.
Its origin dates back to my ancestor, Hugo Baskerville. It is said he was a vile person who earned the wrath of the devil. After his death, all our ancestors seemed to come to bad ends at Baskerville Hall. At the scene of each death, there were always dog or wolf tracks, but gigantic. Thus, over the centuries, a legend was built, that of a creature from hell, the Hound of the Baskervilles. My uncle was sure that it was a reality. He was convinced that the beast would take him sooner or later, as it took all those our lineage. With his last letter, he sent me this medallion. According to Charles, it was needed to break the curse of the Baskervilles, but he did not know how to use it. Do you believe in this legend, Mr. Holmes?
We'll have to exhaust all other hypotheses before falling back on that one. Baskerville Hall in sight.
Holmes, Doctor, welcome to Baskerville Hall. The servants are not here to welcome us, I fear. They were severely affected by the death of my uncle and have since retired.
The family portraits gallery, I assume. But why such expressions on their faces?
These pictures have not always been so disturbing. According to my uncle, the changes in the paintings occurred after the violent death of the portrayed Baskerville. It appears to be one of the effects of the curse.
Have you noticed? The family coats of arms under the pictures are missing.
Indeed, it is an interesting point to begin our investigation. Where can these coats of arms be, and why did they disappear?
Let's try to find them. I cannot stay here any longer. The sight of those ghastly faces is unbearable.
Sir Roger Baskerville is certainly one of the most famous hunters in all of Great Britain.
Indeed, Dr. Watson, my grandfather spent a large part of his life traveling the colonies of the Empire to stalk the largest predators in the world.
Let us try to learn more about the tragic death of Sir Roger Baskerville. Such a distinguished hunter could not possibly have been killed by a simple dog.
A unicorn, a dragon, a werewolf? I can't believe my eyes.
Don't let appearances fool you, Henry.
Dr. Watson is right. It is unlikely that these fantastic animals ever existed. It is, rather, a matter of a remarkable job of taxidermy.
What happened? Where are we?
I believe the correct question is rather, when are we?
What do you mean, Holmes?
Look at these traces of struggle. Look at the shape of the room, its decoration. Everything appears as if Sir Roger was just killed. Smell the air. The odors of gunpowder and blood are still fresh.
You don't really think that we went back in time, do you?
Normally, I would reply no and laugh at your naivety, but for now, I'd rather not say anything. I do not know how or why, but it seems that we have stepped back to a few minutes after the death of Sir Roger. There is always an explanation. Be patient.
Look at this copy of the Times. It's almost 90 years old. Either it is perfectly kept, or we are really at the beginning of the century.
We have all the pieces of the coat of arms of Sir Roger Baskerville. Let's go to his portrait.
The painting seems to be regaining its original colors, as if the curse was lifted.
Holmes, Watson, look! By inserting the arms, we've triggered a mechanism. A secret cache. There's something inside.
The diameter of this jewel seems to perfectly match the empty slot on the medallion.
I think Sir Roger has given us an important element for our investigation. Look, there's a note in the back of the jewel. Physical power and brute force. Amazing! The medallion seems to react to the presence of the jewel. It vibrates. Let us try to use it. Perhaps on the boards that block the door to Louisa's room.
Indeed, it seems that the powers of this locket give us interesting perspectives.
Powers? Dear friend, let's not sink into superstition.
This is Louisa's room. She was a great actress. The poor woman did not live long enough to have the career she deserved.
Do you know how she tried to escape the beast?
According to my uncle, she tried to escape reality by creating a world of her imagination. She hid there thinking she could escape her fate, but the curse took her anyway.
And what of this refuge she created?
My uncle found Louisa's writings speaking of a world behind the mirror. She called it her shelter, but Charles never found out what it was exactly. Here we are again in the past. My God, what a savagery.
A brutal crime, Henry, a brutal crime.
Sadly, it reminds me of our investigation of the crimes of the Ripper of Whitechapel. Awful. Another jewel for the medallion. It also has an engraving. Perception and intuition.
Could it be that it will allow us to see details that we missed? Let's be attentive to our environment. The kitchen. This place will be very useful to us if we are to remain several days here.
Several days in this sinister place? Dear Holmes, I must confess, sometimes I have difficulties in understanding your humor.
I think I remember this kitchen. As I recall, I was in the habit of stealing pastries as a child. How surreal this all seems. James Baskerville was a doctor and a renowned surgeon. He graduated from the prestigious Royal London Medical School. According to my uncle, he spent much time performing medical research on animals. No doubt that he wanted to exploit the weaknesses of the beast that threatened his life.
Supposing this beast does exist.
I begin to doubt that a man, however wild he might be, could be the source of these murders. This manor is full of surprises. Now it's possible to cross the mirror.
Louisa's secret shelter. How could it be?
Don't disturb yourself, my friends. Let's continue our investigation. Here we are, once again, some minutes after the attack.
If Sir James was killed not long ago, why is there no trace of his body? And what if the animal that has taken his life is still here? It may be somewhere outside. Stay away from the window, Henry.
If an animal is responsible for such a mess, it certainly must be big enough to carry away a human body.
You think that these murders might not be the work of a man, Holmes?
No, a man could not do such damage. On the contrary, a man would be perfectly capable of raising an animal to fulfill this type of savageness for him.
What a smell! It is untenable.
Your uncle was right, Henry. Sir James was interested in canine anatomy.
And his fear drove him to perform experiments that his own ethics should have condemned. Tragic.
A nice place. It could be very pleasant to have tea here in another context.
This jewel carries an inscription, temporal acceleration. Tell us about this medallion, Henry. Try to remember the smallest details, even the most trivial.
My uncle wrote that he discovered it in Edward's room, but I don't know any more as he wanted to tell me the rest in person.
Edward, the brother of Hugo.
Yes, Doctor, but unlike what was written in the press, Hugo was not a victim of the curse. His body was found outside the manor near the abandoned mines. He was not mutilated or savaged. As for Oliver, the younger of the three brothers, he disappeared. No one knew what could have happened to him. Edward was the first proven victim of the Hound.
Therefore, Edward did not know of the existence of the beast before being murdered. This contradicts the idea that this medallion, although it was discovered in his room, could have belonged to him.
Unless the medallion has a purpose other than killing the beast, but right now we can only speculate. We lack concrete evidence. Let's continue our investigation.
I know some botanists who would pay a fortune for this medallion.
And some wine growers.
Lily was my aunt, Charles' sister. She was an entomologist.
Without this curse, and with so many different vocations, the Baskerville family could have greatly contributed to the sciences. What a loss for Great Britain.
Holmes?
Watson, don't just stand at the door, enter the room. We have a great deal of work to do.
Are you sure there are no...
Haha, oh no, my friend. There are no spiders in this place, just a few domesticated moths. Come, do not be a child. Watson, what's wrong? Did you see the beast?
If I had to choose between the Hound and the monstrous tarantula that has taken up residence here, believe me, I'd hesitate a few minutes before deciding.
Sir Henry, I beg you to excuse the remarks of Dr. Watson. His phobia for spiders makes him absolutely illogical.
It's understandable. Let's try to find out what happened to Lily Baskerville. On this floor, we will find the rooms of Edward and Elizabeth. At the end of the corridor, we should find the astronomical observatory of my uncle. As for the room at the right, I think that is the room that was prepared for me. Unfortunately, my uncle didn't send me the keys.
Locked doors are not an obstacle, Sir Henry. A loss of time, at the very most. Look, Henry, a piece of heraldry. Someone has taken great pains to conceal it inside this wax mold.
Indeed, Holmes. Now I understand your hesitation in reviving the fire.
If the logic seen so far is repeated, we should expect this shield to release a new power of the medallion. What new ability will this jewel bring to the family medallion? Let's see. It says, nothing created, everything transformed.
A quotation of Antoine Lavoisier, the famous French chemist.
Exactly. This principle was widely used by the alchemists in the last century.
This new power must be related to the transformation of material. Is it possible that this is the great work? The Philosopher's Stone?
Let's search for a place where we can use it without delay. Well, here's an answer to our question. The fourth jewel of the locket allows us figurative transformation.
Henry, your ancestors were full of resources.
I don't think they were the source of this medallion. My uncle would have known. In addition, we didn't find any research notes on this subject. In my opinion, they only looked for the missing parts. They thought that once they had completed the medallion, it would rid them of the beast. None succeeded.
Where does the medallion come from, then?
We shall end up discovering, I'm sure. Henry, you told us that your uncle had prepared this room for you. He hoped for your visit?
I had indeed planned to come see him, but we had not fixed the date. My business in Canada leaves me little free time.
Do you know who lived in this room before Sir Charles prepared it?
I believe that this room was occupied for quite some time. Nobody lived here. The room of Edward, the famous navigator of the family, and the first victim of the curse.
You told us that he was Hugo's brother. Was he living at the manor during the delinquency of his diabolic brother?
No, Edward was a teenager when he left for the Royal Navy. The training of a sailor begins very early.
Speaking of Hugo, what do you know about him?
Just what I was told. He was a base and diabolical being. He terrorized the family. He did not care for Oliver, his younger brother. I shouldn't be surprised if Hugo were responsible for Oliver's disappearance. In spite of his detestable character, Hugo found a delightful woman. Hugo was madly in love with her, but she couldn't return his love. Their union did not last. Growing jealousy and schizophrenia drove Hugo out of his mind. He killed his wife in so vile a manner. This dreadful murder is said to be the origin of the curse. I don't know any more about it.
Do you think that his wife was some kind of witch? Could she have cursed your family before dying?
No, Hugo was the only Baskervilles said to practice the dark arts, nobody else.
Interesting. It is possible that the locket belonged to Hugo. For now, let us search this place. Perhaps we shall find clues to help us in our inquiry.
Again, fresh traces of a prodigious, violent struggle.
The poor man should have stayed at sea. He was safer there. What can you tell us about Elizabeth, Henry?
She was my cousin, the daughter of Charles, and a great painter. There is nothing worse than to survive your own children, and that's what happened to my poor uncle. Elizabeth was attacked by the beast 15 years before her father.
It is tragic.
It was from this time that Charles began to write to me. He was so sad. I think he felt guilty for failing to protect his daughter.
If the logic that we've seen so far continues, we should soon find another jewel of the medallion.
Yes, Dr. Watson, but this locket worries me more and more. I'm not persuaded that it's good for us.
What do you mean, Holmes?
Obviously, this item didn't belong to any of the victims of the curse, which means that it is possible that it could have been Hugo's, and I don't like that hypothesis.
However, this medallion is an essential element of our progress. It guided us here.
Guided or manipulated? I really can't decide. Catch without approaching.
You don't think it means telekinesis?
Why not? It would not be the strangest thing that we've seen in this manner.
I fear the next step of our inquiry. Now that the locket is whole, we are going to have to find the beast, aren't we?
I'm afraid so, my friend.
All this blood.
Look at this picture. The traces of blood are fresh.
What shall we discover now that the locket is reconstructed?
It would be logical that we are being guided towards the means to invoke the demonic dog.
Holmes, you should take note that you used the words logic and demonic dog in the same sentence.
I'm afraid I did. A piece of the door key. Soon we will be able to reconstruct it completely. Obviously, someone went through a great deal of effort to hide this plan.
What can this schematic possibly represent? It is incomplete.
Dear Watson, I think that it depicts the method to invoke the beast.
Amazing. A Baskerville discovered the means to call this monster. Since we have the completed medallion, we have nothing left to do but to reconstruct this plan, invoke the animal, and kill it to put an end to the curse.
Nothing could be easier, indeed.
So here is my uncle's sanctuary. He often wrote me about this place in his letters. He liked to spend time here reading astronomy books or enjoying Indian tea. How I regret not coming back earlier to meet him, while he was still alive.
Henry, you're not responsible for the tragic fate of your uncle, so remove any notion of guilt from your mind.
Do you think that Sir Charles was behind the plan we have discovered?
No, but I think he ascertained clues to it while preparing Henry's room. Perhaps he discovered the incomplete plan, in which case we should find it.
Charles' Observatory. Building it cost him a fair part of his fortune.
Here we are, a few weeks ago. Fascinating.
What a shock it must have been for the domestics. I dare say they undertook huge efforts to erase any traces of this horrible murder. Can you smell that? It's the grey tea that he was so fond of.
Let us not let our emotions overwhelm us, my friends. We must continue with our investigations.
I hope you don't take offence, Sir Henry, but I find Baskerville Manor oppressive. I must say, I am quite happy to get some fresh air. This garden appears just in time.
No offense taken, Doctor. I feel exactly the same. Imagine coming here with a dream to transform this manor into a cozy living place. I could never have imagined finding such atrocious scenes.
These gates lead to the swamp, don't they? We should be careful. Watch your steps and don't move too far from the wall of the manor.
What, in your opinion, will we find in these treacherous swamps, Holmes?
If a ritual that invokes the beast does exist, I doubt it was performed in the manor, otherwise we would have seen the site. I am ready to bet a packet of good tobacco that it must have been performed somewhere in these marshes.
I'll be damned if this circle of standing stones is not the very location of the ritual.
Be careful what you wish for, Doctor.
We're getting closer, my friends.
This mine seems to have been abandoned for quite some time. I didn't know that there was such a place near the manor.
The path goes deeper into the earth. We shouldn't risk getting lost down there. Let's see if we can find anything interesting here.
But this place may be crawling with spiders.
It seems that Sir Charles was interested in these mines. Here is the last part of his coat of arms.
Which is going to be very useful to us. I can feel it.
Here is another piece of the plan. It was indeed in your uncle's possession, Henry.
You were right, Holmes, once again. The plan we found in the manor corresponds exactly to this place. We only have to follow the instructions to summon the Hound.
And once it's here, how are we going to get rid of it? We know that we have to use the medallion against it, but how?
Do not bother us with details, Watson. We will know when the time comes. In any case, we must find all elements needed for the invocation.
I can't believe my eyes.
The monstrous animal has been reduced to ashes.
Dust swept like the wind, like the curse also dissipated.
You're out of danger, Sir Henry.
What a night, my friends. No doubt it will remain etched in my memory for the rest of my life. Holmes, Dr. Watson, how can I possibly thank you? You've done so much for my family.
No need to thank us, Henry. I will spend the next few weeks reconstructing the events of this adventure and trying to find a logical link. However, for me, this work of analysis is already a reward.
Well, my friends, if you do not mind, I would not be unhappy to return to our good old city of London. For my part, my reward will be a cup of decent tea and a good day off.
He will be here soon.
I'm looking forward to seeing him again.
My friends, what a pleasure to see you again.
We are glad to see you too, Henry. Plus, I think that you have a surprise for us.
Ah, Mr. Holmes, it's impossible to surprise you, but perhaps a small clue would be useful. It is a testimony of my gratitude after what you have done for my family.
But, Sir Henry, to solve the Baskervilles case was indeed the most delightful reward for a detective like me.
Anyway, let me introduce my gift.
Introduce?
My dear Holmes, let me present to you the terrible Hound of the Baskervilles.